I never should have gone into the woods that night. If I had known then what I know now, I would have left the goggles on the shelf and stayed inside. But curiosity, like a constant, nagging whisper, won out. And when you're young and restless, the unknown, the dark, the forbidden is just too tempting to resist. It was the summer before my senior year of college. My life had settled into a routine: work during the day, friends in the evening, silence at night. But one evening, my younger brother Brian left something behind. A pair of night vision goggles, a birthday gift, something he had been obsessed with. Heavy, bulky, useless in daylight, but at night they could turn darkness into daylight. Or so he said. I had nothing better to do that evening. The sun had dipped behind the trees, and the night was thick with shadows. The goggles sat on the table, almost daring me. What's the harm in trying them out? I grabbed the goggles, slipped them over my eyes, and stepped into the night. The air outside was warm, heavy with the scent of pine and earth. The moon hung low, casting a faint glow over the nature preserve. The park was officially closed after 10, but the gates were always open, and I knew the paths like the back of my hand. I wasn't supposed to be there, but no one had ever stopped me before. The woods were calling as I walked deeper. The gravel crunched beneath my boots. The trees towered overhead, their branches twisted like skeletal arms. Everything around me was dark, but through the goggles, everything came alive. Grass, leaves, insects, all visible, all moving. I laughed quietly. I felt invincible, like I had unlocked a secret of the night. Then something changed. I heard it, a rustling sound, faint but close. I stopped. Just an animal, I told myself. A deer, something harmless. The woods are always alive at night. I continued walking toward a large fallen log, a perfect place to sit, a perfect place to watch. As I sat down, I heard it again, closer. My heart skipped. I activated the goggles again. The forest lit up in glowing green, and that's when I saw it. Shadows, moving between the trees, not random, not natural, purposeful, like someone was walking, or worse, hunting. I adjusted the lenses, and then I saw him, a tall figure, cloaked in dark clothing, moving carefully, trying not to be seen. But the goggles revealed everything. My breath caught in my throat. He was holding something, a knife. The blade reflected faint moonlight, sharp. Real panic flooded my body. Was he hunting? Was he looking for me? I was alone in the woods, with a man carrying a weapon. I stayed frozen, crouched low behind the log. I didn't move, not even to breathe. My heart pounded so loudly, I was sure he could hear it. The man moved closer, scanning the area. He stopped, right there. Time felt frozen. Had he seen me? Seconds passed, maybe minutes. Then slowly, he turned away and disappeared into the darkness. I stayed hidden for what felt like hours, listening, waiting. When the sounds finally faded, I allowed myself to breathe again, but the fear didn't leave. What if he came back? At sunrise, I finally climbed down and made my way back to the parking lot. That's when my stomach dropped. My car had been vandalized. The windshield was smashed. Deep scratches covered the sides, marks that looked like they were made with something sharp. My heart sank. The parking lot was empty. I was alone. If it hadn't been for the goggles, I might never have seen him. I might not have escaped at all. Even now, years later, that night still haunts me. The image of that man, the feeling of being hunted. The woods were once peaceful, familiar. Now they are something else. Sometimes I wonder, was the man real? Or was it something worse? Something the goggles were never meant to reveal. So if you're ever in the woods at night and you hear rustling in the leaves, don't assume it's just an animal, because sometimes what you can see is not the most dangerous thing out there.
I had just turned 17. It was the summer before my senior year. That was the summer. Everything in my small town took a dark and unsettling turn. Was never afraid of strange things, never one to avoid a challenge. But that summer, the mountains changed that, and so did the man who lived inside them. I worked at a small camping resort just off the highway in a quiet corner of Western Virginia. The air was always thick with the smell of pine. and the distant hum of cicadas. I was just a kid, excited to have my first real job. I had no idea the job would put me face to face with someone who would change my life forever. I first noticed the man late one afternoon. He was tall, over 6 feet. His face was worn down by years of hard living. A long, untrimmed beard, clothes torn at the sleeves, caked with dirt. There was something about him, something that felt wrong. I couldn't explain it at the time. At first, he seemed harmless, almost friendly. He bought trail mix, a few cans of beans, and a bottle of cheap whiskey. He paid with crumpled bills, and when he looked at me, his eyes lingered too long. "Nice place you got here," he said. His voice was low, gravelly. "You live around these parts?" I nodded. "Yeah. Born and raised." "Figured," he muttered. "You look like someone who belongs out here." I rang up his items and forced a small smile, but as he left, he stopped at the door. He stood there, watching me, just a little too long. That wasn't the last time I saw him. Over the next few weeks, he came back again, and again, and again, always buying the same things: trail mix, whiskey, canned food, odd choices. For a man who claimed to live alone in the woods, he started asking questions, personal ones. "Where do you live? Ever been deep in the mountains? It's real nice out there, if you know where to look." He said it casually, but something in his tone made my skin crawl, like he was testing me one day. He asked me to go fishing with him. "You should come sometime," he said, leaning over the counter. "I've got a cabin up in the hills. Great fishing spots." I smiled, but my stomach tightened. "I'm busy," I said. He nodded slowly, like he expected that answer. "Well, if you change your mind, I'm out there most days. Might teach you a thing or two about hunting." That's when the unease really set in. There was something dark behind his eyes, something that made me feel small, vulnerable. I began noticing his truck parked near the store at strange hours, rusty bumper, faded paint. Sometimes he'd just stand outside, staring toward the trees, waiting. One night, as I finished my shift, I saw his truck again. My heart skipped. Something felt wrong, very wrong. I locked the door, grabbed my purse, and walked toward my car. The headlights lit up the gravel. I turned the key. Nothing. I tried again. Still nothing. My phone was dead. I was alone, stuck in the middle of nowhere. Then I heard it. Bought steps, slow, deliberate, crunching on gravel. I turned around and froze. The mountain man was walking toward me. In his hand was something long and metal, a crowbar. Fear tightened around my chest. "You having trouble with your car?" he asked. His voice sounded colder now. "I can't get it to start," I said, my voice shaking. "Let me take a look," he said, smiling, but his eyes stayed dark. I backed away. My heart was pounding. I reached for the door handle. Before I could lock it, his hands slammed against the window. "Get out," he growled. "You don't want to be in there." Panic took over. I fumbled for my phone, still dead. Then, out of nowhere, 2 men appeared in the parking lot, guests from the resort. They saw what was happening and ran toward me. "Hey," one of them shouted. "What the hell is going on?" The mountain man hesitated. His grip tightened on the crowbar. Then slowly, he backed away and disappeared into the darkness. The police arrived later. They took him into custody. I learned afterward he had been living alone in the woods for years, mentally unstable, dangerous. I'll never forget that night, how close I came to something terrible, how fast normal can turn into horror. If those men hadn't shown up, I don't know what would have happened. That night changed me, and I've never looked at the mountains the same way again. It was one of those nights when the air felt heavy, heavy with the unknown, the kind of silence that makes you question every small sound around you. I remember sitting there, listening to the clock on the wall as it ticked again and again, each second sounding louder as the darkness slowly closed in. I was home alone, the house completely quiet, except for the soft glow of the television in the living room. I had just gotten off the phone with my mom, who was away on a work trip, when I heard it. A knock at the door. It was around 10 p.m. 3 sharp knocks against the front door. At first I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe the wind, maybe a neighbor needing help. But then the knock came again, and this time something felt wrong. I paused the TV and stood still, listening as my heart began to race. Slowly, I walked toward the window and peeked through the blinds, and that's when I saw him, a man standing outside wearing a police uniform. At first I felt relief. A police officer. Everything must be fine. I opened the door, just a crack so I could hear him clearly. He greeted me politely, his voice calm, almost too calm, and apologized for disturbing me. He said there had been reports of a suspect in the area, and that he was just checking to make sure everything was all right. I asked if something was wrong, trying to keep my voice steady. He glanced up and down the street before turning back to me and explained that a suspect might be hiding nearby. He said he needed to make sure everything was secure and asked if he could come inside and check my home. That was when my stomach tightened. His tone was polite, but there was no urgency, no real concern. It sounded practiced, rehearsed, like something he had said many times before. I told him I thought I would be fine, and suggested that he check with my neighbors as well. He smiled at me, but the smile never reached his eyes. He said he understood, but insisted that for my safety, I should check the back door, just to make sure everything was locked. It didn't feel like a request. It felt like an order wrapped in authority. I agreed, closed the door, and felt my heart begin to pound, because something about the situation was clearly not right. I walked into the kitchen and quietly grabbed my phone, my hands shaking as I dialed the police department. I whispered my name and explained that there was a police officer outside my house and that I wanted to confirm if one of their officers was in my area. There was a brief pause, and then the dispatcher asked me to describe him. I told her he was tall, had short brown hair, and was wearing a police uniform. Her voice suddenly became urgent as she told me to stay on the line. Those seconds felt like hours. I looked out the kitchen window and saw that the man was still there, standing in the darkness, watching and waiting. Then the dispatcher came back on the line and told me something that made my blood run cold. There were no officers in the area matching that description. She told me to lock all doors and not open the door again. Then the line went dead. He wasn't a cop. Panic rushed through me as I realized the only exit was the front door, the same door where he was standing. I turned off the kitchen lights, grabbed my purse, and quietly moved toward the basement door. Outside, I could hear footsteps moving slowly around the house, deliberate and careful, as if he were checking every window. I slipped into the basement and closed the door behind me, the darkness swallowing me whole. I crouched in the corner, holding my breath, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure he could hear it. Then I heard the front door handle turning. He wasn't checking anymore. He was trying to get in. Fear crawled down my spine as I realized this wasn't a mistake and it wasn't an accident. This was intentional then. In the distance, I heard sirens, faint at first but growing louder with every second. I heard him curse under his breath, followed by footsteps running away from the house. Moments later, the door burst open as real police officers rushed inside. They caught him before he could escape. Handcuffs snapped shut, and they found a fake badge and stolen items on him. He had been pretending to be a police officer for weeks. If I hadn't trusted my instincts that night, I don't want to imagine what could have happened. That experience changed everything for me, and to this day, I never look at a knock on the door the same way again. This story is a reminder of how quickly danger can find its way into your life. Don't let your guard down. Always trust your instincts, especially when something doesn't feel right. If you've ever encountered a situation where you doubted someone's identity or felt uncomfortable, speak up and report it. For more spine-tingling stories like this, be sure to subscribe to Tales of Terror, where we share real-life horror stories and terrifying experiences that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. Stay informed, stay safe, and never underestimate the darkness lurking just beyond your door. Remember, the scariest stories often happen when you least expect them. Keep your eyes open and your mind sharp. Don't let the world around you lull you into a false sense of security. Share this story with friends and make sure they know the signs to watch out for. Follow us for more chilling tales and be ready for the next unexpected turn. Don't get caught off guard. Stay alert